Rumpelstiltskin. Once upon a time, there was a small kingdom nestled at the edge of a dark wood forest. Tales were often told about a fearsome evil presence that was said to live within this forest. Despite this, the people of the kingdom lived happily, thriving under the wise rule of a young king. Within this kingdom lived a poor miller and his daughter. The daughter was exceptionally beautiful and charming. The miller, however, was a known chatterbox, possessing a troublesome habit of exaggerating what he told to others. His fabrications had fooled many people on numerous occasions, leading to complaints about him reaching the king. The king, deciding it was time to teach the miller a lesson, summoned him to the castle. Upon meeting His Majesty, the miller, ever the talker, expressed his gratitude for the honor. He then launched into a boast about his daughter, claiming she was not only the most beautiful girl in the world but, more astonishingly, that she could spin gold out of straw. The king, intrigued and pleased by the prospect of such an art, declared that if the daughter was as clever as the miller claimed, she should be brought to his castle to prove her skill. The miller, with a hesitant yes, 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 sure, my majesty, returned home and confessed everything to his daughter. His daughter, knowing his ways, immediately confronted him, saying, I always told you don't lie to anyone, now you are trapped in your own lie. The miller was left speechless and deeply ashamed. Both then left for the castle, bracing themselves for the upcoming disasters. At the castle, the king welcomed them warmly, remarking on the daughter's beauty matching her father's description. He wasted no time, stating, I hope you would spin the gold from straw, let's not waste any time, come with me. The king himself led the miller's daughter into a room that was quite full of straw. He provided her with a spinning wheel and a spindle and commanded her, now set to work, and if by early morning you have not spun the straw to gold, you and your father shall die. To ensure she did not escape, a guard was placed outside. The poor miller's daughter, overwhelmed and helpless, didn't know what to do. Her distress grew so immense that she began to weep. Suddenly, a bright light beamed into the room, and a fearsome-looking little man appeared. He greeted her. Good evening, miller's daughter, why are you crying? She explained her predicament. She had to spin gold out of straw, and she had no idea how. The little man offered his help, asking, what will you give me if I spin it for you? Desperate, she offered her necklace. The little man took the necklace, seated himself before the wheel, and with a whir-whir sound, spun 3 times round, filling the bobbin. He continued this process, taking up another bobbin, spinning 3 times, and filling it again. He worked tirelessly through the night until morning, by which time all the straw had been spun, and all the bobbins were full of shining gold. She thanked him and asked his name, but the little man simply laughed and disappeared in an instant. At sunrise, the king entered the room, and upon seeing the gold, he was utterly astonished. He admitted he had thought her boastful father was lying. He then told her to take some rest and that he would meet her in the evening. The miller's daughter believed that the king would now reward her and allow her to go home peacefully. However, that evening, the greedy king led her into another room, this one filled with straw and much bigger than the previous room. He demanded, if you value you and your father's life, you must spin all of this into gold tonight. The girl, again at a loss, began to cry. Soon after, the little man reappeared. He told her to stop crying and asked what she would give him if he spun all this straw into gold. The girl thought for a moment and noticed the golden ring on her hand, which was the last precious thing she could offer. She offered it, saying, "Take this ring from my finger." The little man pulled the ring from her finger and began to spin the wheel, whirring round. By next morning, all the straw was spun into glistening gold. She thanked him profusely and again asked for his name, but he just laughed and disappeared. The king came in and was rejoiced beyond the measure at the sight of the gold. He praised her as a gift to our kingdom, declaring he had no words left to praise your talent. He again told her to go and get some sleep and that he would meet her in the evening. At sunset, the king came to the girl and, yet again, took her into an even larger room full of straw. He imposed his greatest demand yet. "This too must be spun in one night, and if you accomplish this you shall be my wife. I am not likely to find anyone better in the whole world." As soon as the girl was left alone, the little man appeared for the third time. He asked what she would give him this time to spin the straw. She sorrowfully replied that she had nothing left to give. The little man considered for a moment and then proposed a new condition. "Then you must promise me to give me your first child after you are queen." Having no other option, she had to say yes. He made her promise she would not forget her word, and she confirmed, "Yes, I promise." The little man then began to spin all night, working much faster than before. All the straw was spun into gold. As he finished his work, he discovered himself enough. This phrasing might indicate the king's thought or simply the completion of the task leading to the king's next action, and thought, "I am going to marry you tomorrow." True to the king's word, the miller's pretty daughter became the queen. In a year's time, the queen brought a child into the world. She had, however, forgotten about her promise to the little man. One day, when she was alone in her room, the little man suddenly appeared. He reminded her, "Oh, did you forget your promise, queen?" She replied that she still remembered but loved her baby very much. She, now queen, humbly asked for a favor, saying, I'm the queen now, you can ask anything you want instead of my baby, I can give you whatever you ask for." But he refused, stating, "No, I would rather have something living than all the treasures of the world." The queen begged him, pleading, "Oh little man, I beg you for this, please leave my baby, please." The little man, taking pity upon her, set one strict condition. She had to guess his name. He declared, "I will give you 3 days, and if at the end of that time you cannot guess my name, you must give the child to be." She thanked him, promising to find his honorable name. He then stated he would come back tomorrow. The queen spent the entire night thinking of every name she had ever heard. The next day, she sent a messenger to ask far and wide for all the names that could be found. When the little man returned, the queen was ready with her list. She started guessing. "Yes, is your name Casper?" He replied, "That is not my name." She tried, "Is your name Melchior?" "No, it is not." She then guessed, "Balthazar?" Again, "No." The queen repeated all the names she knew and went through the entire list given by the messenger. But after each name, he laughed at her and said, "No, that's enough for the day, I will come back tomorrow, be prepared." On the second day, the queen sent her messenger to the neighboring kingdoms to search for the most unusual and singular names. The little man came back in the evening, and the queen was ready with her new list. Perhaps you are roast ribs, she ventured. That is not my name. Sheep shanks, she tried next. No, it is not. Spindle shanks, she offered. No. The Queen went through the entire list, but after each name, the little man said no. He then ominously declared, "Tomorrow is the last day, my Queen, and I doubt you can save your baby." The Queen became deeply worried. But on the third day, she heard something truly unusual from the messenger. The messenger reported that he had not been able to find one single new name. However, as he passed through the woods, he came to a high hill, and nearby there was a small house. Before the house, a fire burned, and round the fire danced a comical little man. He hopped on one leg and sang, "Today I bake and tomorrow I brew, the day after that the Queen's child comes in, and I am glad that nobody knew that my name is Rumpelstiltskin." "That's it," exclaimed the Queen. "You cannot imagine how relieved I am." She immediately pulled out her necklace and gave it to the messenger as a reward. After some time, the little man reappeared. "Now, Queen, what is my name?" the little man demanded. The Queen began, "Are you called Jack?" "No." "Are you called Harry?" "Then perhaps your name is Rumpelstiltskin." The little man, in a burst of furious anger, cried out, "The devil told you that." In his rage, he stamped so hard that he sank into the ground up to his knee. Then, in a fit of uncontrollable fury, he seized his left foot with both his hands and split it in two. And there and then was the end of Rumpelstiltskin. The Queen lived happily with her child and king thereafter. Analysis: the story of Rumpelstiltskin unfolds as a cautionary tale steeped in themes of deception, the corrupting influence of greed, and the profound consequences that arise from unchecked boasting and manipulative bargaining. At its core, the narrative is catalyzed by the miller's inherent flaw, his nature as a chatterbox with a habit of exaggerating what he told to others. This seemingly innocuous character trait, leading to him foolishly boasting that his daughter could spin gold out of straw, sets in motion a chain of events that imperils his daughter's very life. The king's decision to teach him a lesson by demanding proof of this impossible skill highlights a societal disapproval of dishonesty, yet the king's own subsequent actions quickly reveal a darker side. Initially portrayed as a wise ruler, the king swiftly succumbs to an overwhelming desire for wealth once the miller's daughter seemingly proves her ability. His escalating demands for more and more gold, moving her from a quite full room of straw to a much bigger one, and then an even larger one, betray a profound sense of avarice. The king's conditional promise of marriage, stating "I am not likely to find anyone better in the whole world if she completes the final task," suggests that his interest lies primarily in her unique, gold-spinning talent rather than any genuine affection or regard for her as an individual. This illustrates how power, when coupled with greed, can blind one to morality, reducing people to mere instruments for personal gain. The king's failure to reward or release the miller's daughter after her initial success, instead forcing her into increasingly perilous tasks, marks him as a morally complex figure whose wise rule is compromised by his insatiable hunger for gold. The miller's daughter herself is presented as a tragic figure, a victim of circumstances beyond her control. Her repeated expressions of distress, such as "didn't know what to do" and "beginning to weep," underscore her vulnerability and helplessness in the face of impossible demands. Her desperation forces her to part with her most precious possessions, first a necklace, then a golden ring, simply to survive and save her father's life. The ultimate promise, to surrender her first child after becoming queen, is extracted under extreme duress, as she literally has no other option but to say yes. Her subsequent forgetfulness of this terrible promise after becoming queen and giving birth is not an act of malice but rather a believable human response, perhaps a form of psychological coping with a traumatic past, only for the forgotten threat to re-emerge later with devastating immediacy. Rumpelstiltskin, the fearsome-looking little man, acts as the pivotal, albeit malevolent, enabler. His initial demands for material objects like the necklace and ring suggest a straightforward transactional nature. However, his eventual demand for the queen's firstborn child, expressed with the chilling preference for something living than all the treasures of the world, reveals a deeper, more sinister motivation that transcends mere material wealth. This shift elevates him from a mere magical helper to a figure driven by a dark, possibly supernatural, desire for control or a particular kind of power. His moment of pity upon the queen's desperate plea for her baby is fleeting, swiftly replaced by the rigid, conditional demand to guess his name. This condition becomes his undoing. The story emphasizes the mystical power inherent in a true name, knowing it grants power over the named entity. Rumpelstiltskin's boastful song, "Nobody Knew That My Name Is Rumpelstiltskin," explicitly highlights the secrecy of his identity as his source of power and protection. His explosive, self-destructive rage upon the revelation of his name, stamping into the ground and violently splitting his own foot, underscores the critical importance of this secret to his very existence. His final furious cry, "The devil told you that," signifies the extreme shock and sense of betrayal he feels at his secret being uncovered, perceiving it as an act of malevolent intervention against him. His violent, self-inflicted demise is a classic fairy tale resolution, where the villain's own hubris and negative traits ultimately lead to their spectacular downfall. The entire narrative serves as a powerful exploration of the escalating consequences of deceit and greed. The miller's lie sets the initial catastrophic chain of events in motion. The king's insatiable greed perpetuates the daughter's peril, continually escalating the stakes. Rumpelstiltskin's manipulative bargains, predicated on his concealed identity and true intentions, are a form of deception that nearly costs the queen her child. Ultimately, the chronological unfolding of these actions leads from peril and despair to a resolution where the villain is vanquished, and the heroine, having endured immense suffering, finally finds peace and lives happily ever after with her child and king.